Hello again. So remember, you learned your 4 basic chords, which are G, C, D, and E minor. Remember, this is a baritone ukulele. The chords are slightly different on a soprano ukulele. So, there are many songs that have 4 chords in them. And we're going to learn one of them, I'm sure you've heard the tune before, by Green Day, called Time of Your Life, or also called Good Riddance. So, that's the first chord, the G chord. The strumming pattern, remember, is down, down, up, down, up. Let's do that real quick. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Take a minute if you need to refresh and practice that for a little bit. So again, this song uses the G chord, the C chord, the D chord, and the E minor chord. The introduction goes a little something like this. Repeat. Okay? So, what that is 2 strumming patterns of G, 1 of C, and 1 of D, and repeat. G, C, and back to G. Take a minute and try that on your own. Moving on from the introduction, let's go to the first verse. So it starts on a G chord. The words are, another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. And those chords are G, another turning point, a C stuck in the D road. And then same chords again for time. G grabs you by the wrist and C directs you where to D go. Let's try that together. The first 2 lines. 1, 2, 3, and another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist and directs you where to go. Good. Take a minute and practice just those chord changes if you're having trouble. If you're not, loop those 2 lines again. Okay, after you have that down, let's move on to the third line. It starts off with an E minor chord. So make the best is a D chord of this test C chord, and don't ask G why. Let's try that in time. E make the D of this C, and don't ask G. From there, we have another E minor chord. E, it's something G-dictable. But in the end it's right. Those were E minor to G major chords. And the last line is E minor. I hope you had the D time of your life is a G chord. Okay, take a minute. Figure those out if you need to. Let's take the whole first verse. Remember, it starts on a G chord. 1, and if you're having trouble with the strumming pattern, just do basic strums for every chord. After you practice it for a little bit, you'll be able to strum and sing it the whole time. Alright? So let's everybody just do one strum in the chord. Okay? From where the singing comes in, the first verse. 1, 2, 3, and another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist and directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. Take a minute, or several. This may take a while. And practice that. Try to get the strumming pattern down. If you can't, just use the single strum chords. Alright? At this point, we have the intro and the first verse down. Good job so far. Now, between the first verse and the second verse is a bit of an interlude. And guess what? It's the exact same chords as the introduction. It just happens twice. Alright? So remember we have the G chord, the C chord, and D. So in time that's D, G, C, G, and G, and C, D, G. But we'll repeat that 4 times instead of just 2. Then, moving on, the second verse has the exact same chords as the first verse. So let's go through it. The words are, well, starting on G chord, take the photographs and see still frames in your mind. D chord, remember? G, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. E minor, tattoos the D memories, and this test go on trial. E minor for what it's worth, D, it was C worth all the G while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. Good. If you need to look at the chords, go ahead and look on the board, it's okay. And let's follow along. Let's try to play that second verse in time with me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf and in good health and in good time. Tattoos the memories and this test go on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. Good. Remember, those are the exact same chords as the first verse. It's just different words. And the words are up on the board, so feel free to read along. Alright, so at this point we have the intro, the first verse, the interlude, and the second verse. What's left? The outro. Guess what? You can just play the same thing as the intro, the G chord twice, C, and D, and you can keep vamping that as long as you want. I would end on the G major chord because that just sounds nice. Alright? Let's try to take it all the way through. And the words are up on the board, so if you need help with the words, feel free to look. Chords are above the words. If you need help, I'll call out the chords while I'm singing. Try to keep the strumming pattern the whole time, but for the chorus and the verses while you're singing, if you can't do the strumming pattern, at least try to do the single strum for each note. Just like that. But definitely for the intro, the interlude, and the outro, try to keep the strumming pattern going the whole way through. You'll get it. It comes with practice. Alright? So, let's take it all the way through with me. 1, 2, starting on G. Here we go. G, C, D, and G. C. Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist and directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you have the time of your life. C. Back to G. C. Second verse. Take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf and in good health and in good time. Tattoos the memories, this test to go on trial. it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. C, G, D, sorry, G, and C, and G. Great job!